The views and opinions in the following program remain those of the producer, and in no way reflect the views and opinions of Medford Community Cablevision, its board of directors, management, or other affiliates.
Welcome to another edition of The Money Managers. My name is Harvey Alberg.
And I'm Ron DeLucia.
And boy, do we have a jam-packed program tonight.
Yes, and we had a heated debate right before the program.
I punched him 4 times, but it was not in a place that was visible.
And I didn't feel a thing. He hit me in the head, so I didn't feel a thing.
Now listen, for those of you who have been following the great ice cream caper, we will have an update at some point during the program, but we won't tell them when, right? Is that
All I'm hoping is at the very end when there's about 30 seconds left.
A week ago, and this is, we're actually doing this on July 25th, 2012.
Now, Columbus Day.
Yes, so for those of you who watch this 4 years from now, you'll know what it is. Last week we had some horrific thunderstorms in the area.
Oh, yeah.
And there was one of those downbursts in
microbursts where it comes down. And
it did a lot of damage. Some of the damage took place in my mother-in-law's backyard. Well, that's the way it goes. She has a tree. First of all, she has a fence that goes around the yard. Now, on the other side of the fence...
Why do I think this is going to be like the ice cream?
The other side of the fence is this big tree, but it's on her property.
Wait a minute. So the fence is in from her property line.
Yes.
The tree is inside her property line, but over the fence.
You know, for those who said that you weren't the brightest light in the chandelier...
Oh, they're right.
Well,
I have to do the translation. So,
so the microburst happens. The tree is uprooted from the ground and splits. Half the tree falls on this neighbor's garage roof, and the other is being held up by the other neighbor's tree. If you shake it, the whole thing's going to go down up against the house. Mm-hmm. So she said, well, I'm going to get somebody down here to take the tree down. I said, whoa, no. I have to call the world's expert on such things. Mm-hmm. Ron DeLucia.
Yeah, known worldwide for helping Harvey out.
So anyway, it is a problem. It's a very commonly misunderstood situation. I gave her the information you gave me. It's all set. She's only going to pay for the part that's on her property. But the key was she can't touch her part because it will disturb the rest of it, which will then probably cause something which then people could say, you caused it. So she has to sit there until they go ahead and do their part. Now, you explain what those...
Well, there are a couple of things going on here. Let's take the tree first before it split, okay? Let's just say the tree fell on the neighbor's house, the land, or whatever. Right?
Yeah, and it was a healthy, good, solid tree.
If your tree, your mother's tree, falls on a neighbor's property, it's not your mother's fault. Okay, the property that it fell on, it's their responsibility, their bad luck, that their insurance would take care of it. So if they have a deductible, the deductible would apply. So if they had a $500 deductible and it did damage to the house, their insurance, the house that got damaged, their insurance would pay for it minus the $500 deductible. Okay. Now, there's an interesting thing in most policies. If a tree falls and it doesn't do any damage, the basic policy doesn't remove the tree.
Really?
Yeah, and a lot of times some policies will allow the tree to be cut up but not removed from your property.
Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah, it's the ins and outs. You can thank the attorneys for this, so thank you up there. Right? Now, the twist that's on your mother's is that the tree fell and it's leaning against the neighbor's property. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how far it is or what the adjuster would say, but he could come up with 2 different things. He could say, well, since it hasn't done any damage, it's still connected to your mother's property.
Yeah.
If it does do damage, it's going to be your neighbor's responsibility, except if the neighbor notifies your mother that tree is going to cause damage, then your mother has to do something about it, or she becomes negligent. So that's an interesting one. I haven't had that one before, so I'd be curious to see as to what they do.
Now, she called her insurance company. They said,
take a hike.
Just let them take care of it, and then when they've done their part, then you do the part which is, the route that's coming up.
Where it's so minor, where it didn't do $50,000 worth of damage, I have a feeling that the neighbor's insurance is going to come in and just take care of the whole thing.
Okay.
I mean, as much as we think insurance companies, are awful and bad, and sometimes they are, because there are stupid people that work for them, just as there are stupid people who, work at a pizza place, or work anywhere. Most insurance companies, when they see something like that, will just try to get done with it, because it's not worth the aggravation, and it's not worth losing a client or having, the bad will that could happen. And the difference isn't going to be much money, so most good companies would pay to remove everything.
Yeah. Okay, so if, let's hope that we don't get any more microbursts between now and the end of the season. But if it happens and you end up with a tree situation, don't just jump in with your power saw and start cutting stuff up.
Well, it's a good lesson to be learned from this is that insurance is not the same. I mean, it used to be pretty much a policy was pretty much the same everywhere. Now companies for competitive purposes have thrown in all these extras. Some of them charge for it, some of them don't. For example, 10, 15 years ago, every policy had what they call guaranteed replacement cost on a single or a two-family house. If it burnt down, they would build the house no matter what it cost. Right? Now what they've done is because they got burnt so many times, they limit the amount of money they will spend above what your policy says. So it's important that you make sure you insure your house for the proper amount. Also, there are so many added things that you can put in there, like identity theft. If you get a credit card, they always tell you, $12 a month will take care of your identity problems. Well, most insurance companies, for $20 a year, will take care of it. If your house is subject to maybe a little low area, it may not be in a flood zone, but maybe you have a sump pump that works a lot. You can buy, coverage that if your sump pump fails and it backs up, you'll get paid for that. And it doesn't cost much, but you need to ask. And if you're not somehow bundling your auto and home policy together, you're probably losing money right off the top.
Okay, great. So that takes care of our
your mother.
Well, since I'm the official weatherman of TV3, I had to have that one first.
Well, did your mother get really mad at you since you are the weatherman? Couldn't you have directed the microburst someplace else?
No. She was very appreciative of the fact that I know the world's expert. And remember Irwin Corey? Professor Irwin Corey. He was the world's expert, period.
Yes, the world's expert, and he said an awful lot of nothing.
Yes, and he would come out in that wonderful tuxedo and sneakers, and the hair all disheveled.
Now he could have been, probably the founder of Facebook.
He probably was.
He was ahead of his time.
He may have been Zuckerberg's father. We don't know. Another question, and then we'll get into more meatier issues. I was reading this short article that said, if you want to save 2% on your miles per gallon that you get in your car, and I know what you're going to say, get rid of 100 pounds out of your car.
So this is another good reason not to be married. And if you are, it's a good reason to say, honey, I think it's about time we split. Because if you could save money by getting rid of 100 pounds, you probably could save more by getting rid of a lot more.
That's probably true. And before we went on the air, Ron called my wife and told her the next time she's driving and I'm in the passenger seat,
throw them out.
Open the door, kick me out, and she'll save some money.
Well, that's just a common sense thing. The heavier a vehicle, the more it's going to take, more energy.
And a lot of people carry junk around in their trunk, stuff that you absolutely don't need. I'm one of those neatness nuts about my car, and so I never leave stuff in the car, and it doesn't build up. Every time I get home, if there's stuff in the car, I bring it upstairs. So I would just suggest to people make it a project this month. Clean out the trunk of your car. I'm willing to bet that half the people listening to this show have 100 pounds of junk.
Still have their snow shovels in there and approach stuff. Yeah, and another thing, if you really want to save mileage, save gas, if you're going, let's say you're going to New Hampshire, you know, and it's 75 miles away. So you drive 75 miles an hour, you get there an hour. If you drive 65 miles an hour, it's going to take you an hour and 10 minutes, right?
Yep.
But what you'll do is you'll increase your mileage by about 15%. If you were to drive 60 or 55, you probably get 25% better mileage than if you drive 75 on the way up.
That's amazing.
Well, yeah, and when you consider gas now is over $3.50 a gallon, which incidentally was only $1.86 at the start of this presidency. How come we don't hear anybody complaining about how much it is now?
Yeah. Well, then again, in the president's defense, he said the president doesn't control the price, and when it went up to almost $4 a gallon recently, he said the president doesn't control the price. It's the market. And sure enough, he didn't do anything, and the price came back down. There's a lot of reasons. One of the biggest reasons, which people just don't seem to understand, is once the oil is refined and becomes gasoline, you think it goes to our gas stations. No, it goes internationally to the highest bidders. And that's what drives the price of gas up. So, we happen to live in a free economy. You can't tell the oil companies, I'm sorry, if China bids, let's just say, $3.60 a gallon for this gasoline, you have to refuse it and sell it to us for $3.30. You can't do that.
No, but there are many factors here, and one of the things they say we have well over 100 years supply of natural gas. Honda has a Civic that runs on natural gas, and there are other car companies, and some of the fleets and buses in some of the major metropolitan areas will run on natural gas. Now, natural gas doesn't have the same amount of energy, as gasoline for the same quantity. However, it is so cheap right now, there's such a glut in it, and they say there'll be a glut for years to come. It would be, to me, it's worth it to start changing some of these cars around.
Is it a difficult process to do?
No, excuse me, no. You'll still run your same engine. See, the thing is, you don't need new technology. You have an engine. What you need is a fuel delivery system. So, and I think it scares people because, you could have a pressurized tank in your car for natural gas rather than having a gas tank. And you actually could, if you had gas for your house, fill up your car from your house. There are plenty of things to do. In fact, I brought this tonight. I just looked at this. Automobile Magazine has the new cars, and this is the time of the year I get excited because all the new cars are coming out and the pictures are out.
And by the way, just to interrupt you, for those of you who don't know, this guy, probably blindfolded, could build a car. He's involved with building race cars, and I know you could take an engine apart and put it back together again. So when Ron tells you about this stuff, believe it. There's a lot of credibility behind what he says.
Well, I've got some good friends. One has a shop in Waltham, and we've raced an old Porsche for years, and he's probably the best mechanic I've ever known. And he's not just a regular mechanic. He's a graduate engineer with a master's degree in mechanical engineering. So, and I've learned an awful lot. He's allowed me to to work on the cars and go there. And some nights, I go there and I fool around. And I'll just a quick story. One particular night, it was extremely frustrating working on the race car. We couldn't get anything done. And I remember, hammers were flying all around and nuts and bolts because you're trying to do something and you just can't do it. And we take all the cars out in the yard and put them in the shop and lock them up at night. And he rebuilds cars. I mean, there were two Triumph TR4s, and he took the front end of one and the back end of another, put it together, and made one car. But we were moving the cars, and for a motorhead such as me, it's a treat to do this. He said, Ron, do me a favor, just take the Maserati and move it forward and put the Jag right behind it. So I was moving a Maserati and an old Jaguar XKE that had been restored. And I said, Skip, I said, I know it's been tough, but imagine how many people in the world are doing what we're doing tonight. And if you like what you're doing, you're able to move two of the most famous cars, ever in the world. So, so cars have been my hobby, my passion since I was a little kid. And if you remember, we did a couple of shows. We talked about, hybrids and if they worth it and doing it. And it's interesting the way hybrid technology is sort of evolving now. they're making it so that it augments the gasoline. I mean, Chevy's got a Malibu that's coming out with one, and they have maybe 20 horsepower, but it helps push it along.
You know, now that you're talking about that, I've always meant to ask you this because I was reading, probably a month or so ago, the new Tesla is out. And it's a big sedan and
well over $100,000.
Yeah, but it's completely electric. Because I don't know where you're going to fill it up when you run out.
I have a quart of electricity.
But they have the technology, don't they?
Yes, they've got technology, and that Tesla, one of them burnt down a house. So everyone got nervous about that recently. I think it was in Arizona. But they were $100,000, for this Tesla, for the sports car.
Yeah.
But the problem is, the Tesla is limited to about 250 miles. So if you wanted to go on a long trip, you couldn't do it. There's going to have to be something developed. Most families have 2 cars now. So it eventually might be that you have a car that you have for long trips or whatever, and you have a small sort of a city car, that you can drive around the city, because most trips are 10 miles or less. And if that's the case, then a Prius or something like that, might make sense for people.
Yeah. Or a fully electric car might make sense. Because
well, the Prius has a bunch of different models now, and they're going to have a fully. Nissan has a Leaf, they call it, which is fully electric. Ford's coming out with one too. I just don't like the technology, and I don't like it. I think there are other alternatives that are cheaper, that make more sense wise. Because the thing that you're not told with this is, what does it take to produce those batteries? Now, those batteries are deadly poison. Yeah. What does it take? What sort of chemical things? And we're saying, we're helping the atmosphere. Well, what does it take to produce the electricity?
And what are we going to do with the batteries when they die?
Yeah, it's, we tend to jump on the bandwagon for something like, oh, I'm green, I want to do this. Well, what are the ramifications, and what really happens? And those are the things that we're not really told about.
Now, we were talking about gasoline prices just before we digressed a little bit, but there's something that's going on that maybe people don't realize that's going to drive gas prices up. And it has to do with the fact that there's alcohol in the gasoline.
Yes, you can't drink it, so just relax.
No, you can't drink this. And because of the terrible drought and heat wave that they've had in the Corn Belt, in order to manufacture this alcohol, was it ethanol?
Yep.
In order to manufacture it, you have to use corn, right?
Well, you can use just about anything. You can use paper. You can use a lot of different things. They tend to use corn because corn grows quickly. But once again, it's people saying, "Oh, this ethanol, this is wonderful. Let's do this." But what it does is you have to use so much fertilizer to get it. So you're doing things to the land, and then you have to refine it. And it takes, the studies I've read, it takes almost as much energy to refine this as it does, to get
so
oil.
By the time you finally get it, you've expended more energy.
Yeah, it's about an even thing. And if you go to the gas pump, you'll see it can contain as much as 10% ethanol.
Yep.
What the alcohol does to the rubber and plastic parts of an engine, it deteriorates them more than gasoline. So they've run into some problems with some of the parts, and even the ones they say, oh, this is great for, it's okay for ethanol, well, a lot of them aren't. Because, especially if you have an older car, it wasn't prepared for this. Yeah. Now Brazil is an interesting country, because what they do is they use sugarcane, and they run an awful lot of their vehicles strictly on alcohol.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now, the other increase in cost that's going to be the result of the ethanol in gasoline is because the corn is being used for that, what little corn grew this year, it's going to drive the cost of so much else up that we buy to eat. For instance, the feed for animals.
And corn syrup, the sweetener, is used in just about everything. Yeah. And they're talking about the price of food is going to go up dramatically.
Yeah. So, the economics of weather, and of course weather's my hobby, the cars is yours, is really interesting. You could probably do a whole show just on the economics of weather, but that's going to really hurt us.
I think what you've just shown, Harvey, is that it's like the ecosystem. You bring in a bug to kill this other bug that's destroying a plant. Okay, you say, oh, this bug is a predator for this bug. Well, then this bug kills this bug. Then all of a sudden, this bug that you brought in causes problems.
Yep.
And because you can't foresee what nature has done, and there's a delicate balance. And the gypsy moth that was brought in by mistake from China. It was brought in at Tufts University, I think, in the middle 1800s, by a professor that was studying them, and one got away. And look what happens with the gypsy moth, because it really has no predators.
Destroyed an awful lot. I know you want to talk about something really important. Let me get rid of another small item here. And that is a discussion. We'll make this one fairly quick, but it's an important one. And that's the question, should you save for college education for your children or put the money into retirement?
Yes.
Well, there's two schools of thought, although I happen to think that you should be saving for your retirement just because it's your retirement, and your kids certainly are capable of getting jobs and working, and if they get really good jobs because they went to college, they can pay off the college loans themselves.
Well, that's a problem that a lot of parents have now. I don't have any kids, so I don't have that problem. So maybe my take on it might be a bit different. It might be clearer, or it may be clouded because I don't have kids. However, as what it costs for BU, BC, whatever, you're talking close to $60,000 a year.
It's obscene.
Now, when I went to Lowell Tech back when it was an engineering school before it was UMass Lowell, it was $100 a semester. Now that means I could go out during the summertime, and I certainly could make $100, to pay for it. How does a kid go out and make $30,000 to pay for a semester, at BU? You just can't. No. So you go into debt, and by the time you're done, it's $250,000, in debt. So you come out with that, and the problem is that if you're an average person, how do you send one kid to college, let alone two or three? I don't know, and I think what we've learned over the years, if a person doesn't have skin in the game, it's not quite the same. They don't take it as seriously as it is, and they don't do as much. I think the kids need to take out as many loans as they can. You help out what you can, or you set an amount and say, this is what you're going to get. And I'll tell you, I'd rather, and I've seen more successful people come out of the state schools and average schools, and I'd rather be with them than I would for these guys that come out of Harvard that just get in there, and I don't know, where their heads are.
Well, the issues that I came up with were, first of all, if you're putting money in a 401k, you're getting a tax break because of that. And so if you continue to do that, the tax break might allow you to put a little bit of money away for college. But don't do it, this is my opinion now, don't do it at the expense of saving for retirement. And the other thing that people sometimes forget, and it's happening now, many people who are in their just before I retire years are now not only trying to make their kids get through college and save for their own retirement, they are now supporting their parents because their parents couldn't or didn't save for retirement. You will take the burden off your kids later. Sure, you may give them a burden earlier to have to pay for their own education, but I'll tell you, your kids are not going to want to support you when you're 70, 80 years old in retirement, when they're just getting ready to turn that last corner and come to the finish line for themselves.
Well, and what we're experiencing with our whole economy is everything meshes together and one thing affects something else, is that I'm fearful for your children. I don't have any children. So I should be all happy and say, hey, spend as much as you want, government, borrow as much as you want. I want to live good. Let's let the next generation worry about it.
You'll be long gone.
Yeah, but I don't. I mean, I strongly believe in America. I believe I'm American. I want to help people. But what we've run is the country, we've run it like a gigantic credit card. And even if you run your own personal life, like borrowing for college, doing things for college to help your kids out, you're just taking a credit card and you're putting it down the road. Eventually, someone calls that in. I'm afraid the country's running that way. And individually, how many of us run our lives that way?
I always wonder, what if some of these foreign countries, let's say China, who've invested so much into our money,
Just say no.
what if they called in their bonds and everything they bought from here? See, they're holding the real wild card. We think, oh, we have this big army. We can protect ourselves. Wait a minute. We're talking about an economic army that is beyond anything that's ever been seen before. They could devastate this country.
Whether you're Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter. I think both parties are guilty of contributing somewhat, maybe one more than the other, but that's subject to an opinion. But we don't even have a budget for this country, and the law says we're supposed to have a budget every year. We don't have a budget. We just take whatever we want and borrow more and spend more. And I heard a statistic today that in 1962, 6% of the population was getting some sort of assistance from the government, not Social Security, because you paid into Social Security, and you're going to get money back.
That's your money.
As of today, it's over 40%. So 6% from 1962 to 40% now. That's a problem. It's a problem, and it's going to come crashing down eventually. And everyone keeps putting it off and putting it off. Let's just, they want to tax us more, but you can't keep taxing. We hear about the 1%. If you confiscate it, because that's what it is, everyone's income in that top 1%, you'd have between $200 and $300 billion, they say. Our debt is $15 trillion. The $200 or $300 billion does nothing.
And growing even as you talk.
And I'm tired of hearing this class warfare coming up. And I'm tired of, of seeing that if you're successful, you try to do good. You didn't do it on your own.
Now, this is a nice transition into an article that you have from the Wall Street Journal, since we're talking about that. But I wanted to make one comment about those statistics. What's missing from the 6%, that is part of the 40%, is we now have this huge population explosion that is retiring, which is the baby boomers. And they are now going to be using Social Security, and a lot of them are already doing it. So that's probably part of that 40%.
No,
I don't doubt for a minute.
This doesn't. No, that statistic did not include Social Security.
Oh, it doesn't? Okay.
Does not include it because Social Security you paid into.
Okay.
You're getting it back. But think about, Medicare, Medicaid, all those. And once again, both parties are guilty of this.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want to help people? All right. If you're a decent person, you want to help. But at some point in time, you got to stop. Now, I've always used the analogy: if you have food for one person, and you're going to feed either your child or your neighbor's child, who are you going to feed?
Me.
Well, if you don't feed your child, you shouldn't have had one. Now, you don't want your neighbor's child to starve. You don't want them to have a problem.
But you got to give it to your kid first.
Right. So we're in the same boat. I mean, we want to help people, but where is the line drawn? When people say they want to get more money from the rich, how much? Where's that line? How much do you want? When you figure out how much you spend in taxes or you pay in taxes, how much is fair? How much is enough?
Are you telling me that you do not believe our public servants when they say, gee, we don't waste any money. There is no place we could possibly cut expenses because everything is right down to the bare bones. We have redone every contract, no bid. I'm sorry, did I say that?
Did you say no bid? Oh, yeah, I heard that.
We have redone every contract. We've lowered costs everywhere. We have made sure that everything we buy for you, the taxpayer, is at the lowest price and the highest quality that money can buy.
$700 hammer, $1,500 toilet seat, yes.
Yes. So I know that you believe them when they say that, but I don't. I'm a little cynical when it comes to...
Ye of little faith, Harvey.
So now, I'll set this up for you, and then I'll let you go off until I have to rein you in.
Okay.
We have a situation. Of course, the situation could be titled Congress or the President / Congress, whatever you want to call it, there was a committee set up, a bipartisan committee that was set up following a bipartisan legislation that said, committee, go ahead and come up with the cuts that we need to make to balance the budget and to start getting the deficit down.
And if you don't?
And if you don't, I'm getting to that. Don't interrupt my train of thought. You know I can't remember for more than 2 seconds.
What? Who am I? Oh, this is Polar Seltzer, for those of you wondering. I know. If you had to work with him, you'd be drinking too, but it is Polar Seltzer.
Now, these brilliant congressmen were put into a room. I wish they had locked the door and not let them out, but they let them out at least to go to the bathroom. And they were told you have X number of weeks, come up with a solution. And if you don't,
automatically,
was it $1.6 trillion will
taxes.
be cut from the budget, and we will lose the tax cuts, the Bush tax cuts. Taxes will go up, spending will go down automatically, and it includes the huge defense budget cuts. Well, and that's what they're calling the cliff. Yep. That we're about to be pushed over. Now, they need to do something. And you know what? They don't want to. And the reason they don't want to is we have an election coming up, and they're all scared to death they won't get reelected if they come up with the wrong cut, the wrong tax increase, the wrong this. For God's sake, you're there to represent us and do the right thing for us, not get reelected. I don't think that there should be more than one term served by these people.
Well, I always was against term limits, but I get the feeling that because of what has happened and because of the evolution in our government, that something has to happen. I mean, the term limits were almost built in when the government was founded because most of the people who served in government were, believe it or not, folks, the wealthy, because they could take off from the farm or their manufacturing, that they could go in and represent the country, and when they were done, they would go back to their farm.
Yes, they weren't there all year.
No, and it was not a career for them. What has happened is these politicians now a career. How about, no matter what your feelings are with Obamacare, they don't have to participate in it, and they're not going to.
It's crazy.
If it was so good for everybody, why wouldn't they be part of it?
Because they don't want to give up what they've got, which is much better, and they won't let us participate in it.
And we were founded under principles that there was no royalty. Well, unfortunately, the royalty is in Washington, and that's what's happened. Yeah. And people, say, the Tea Party was bad or whatever. What it did, it at least it gave people a voice, whether you agree with them or not, to say this isn't right. The taxes are too high. What are we getting for our taxes? When the government in Massachusetts can't even vote on saying that the EBT cards, the cards that help welfare people out, that you can use them for basically anything. And what so many of them have done is they sell them for 50 cents on a dollar, and they go out, they can buy booze, they can buy cigarettes, they can buy whatever they want with them.
Now, the governor tried to stop that, and they overrode his veto.
No, the government overrode everyone else's veto. The governor said no. The governor said he didn't want to do that. It was demeaning to people.
Oh, I thought it was the other way around.
No. There was a movement in the Senate, in Massachusetts, to at least say, let's make these cards so that, not saying people don't need them, but if you've got a card that's for food, you use it for food.
You use it for food, yeah.
Now, it was on the radio a month or so ago that a drug dealer from Lynn got arrested, and he called his girlfriend to get the EBT card, so to get it, go to the store, get money, and use that money to bail him out. Are we crazy as a society? We have to be. I mean, we have to be.
Don't get yourself all worked up. Talk about the tax cliff. Now you can get worked up.
The tax cliff endangers seniors. And this is part of the process that you don't hear. Everyone is worried about, we have to protect people. Well, subtle things happen here that affect things over here. Part of what Harvey was talking about, the increase in taxes or the negation of the Bush tax cut, means capital dividends. The tax you're paying on dividends is going to increase dramatically. Now, you may think that dividends
It's going to go to 20%.
Well, it's going to go. What happens is even going to go higher than that. When you think that dividends are only for rich people, well, they're not. If you have a pension plan, they have invested, I'm sure, in dividends. They have invested. And if they tax dividends, the value of that stock is going to go down because the dividends aren't as worthwhile as they were before, so less people are going to want the stock. So if your pension plan has stock in companies like Clorox that gives dividends, the value of that stock is going to go down because the dividends are going to be taxed more.
Now, just to clarify one thing, and you're right on the right track, but remember, if it's a pension plan that is what we call tax favored, which means that it's been tax deferred so far, and when you take the money, it's 100% taxable. That does not involve capital gains. That's all based on your current tax rate, as opposed to the word is really qualified money. Non-qualified money, that's where the dividends really come in. But you're right in terms of if there's less demand for a stock, most likely the stock is going to go down, which means people are going to lose a lot of money. Not only would you have to pay more tax on your dividends, but you're going to lose
on the value
of the stock. So keep going.
See, all this boils down to a simple thing. Everything is too confusing. It's too convoluted. You put something in here to protect this, it affects this. It's like the economy. You don't know how this is going to affect this because this affects this. You know, I'm in favor of some sort of flat tax and make it simple.
Well, we've talked about that. We
both
agree on that.
What people do now is they invest inefficiently. They invest to avoid taxes. You know, because it's all part of it. No sense making $1 million if the government takes it all from you. You're better off making $500,000 and keeping it all yourself. Yeah. So you invest inefficiently, and that is not the best thing for the economy. Whether it be dividends, whether it be anything, it should be taxed at the same rate. And besides that, when you get a dividend from a company, they have already paid 35% on the money before you get the dividend. So if they create $1, the tax rate for corporate tax rate in America is 35%. So that dollar translates to 65 cents, and then you get taxed on the 65 cents. So instead of you getting the dollar, you get the 65 cents. We have one of the highest tax rates in the world. So if you're an investor, where are you going to invest? Or you're a company. You don't put the money back into America. You hear this, jobs going overseas. Romney and Obama, they're telling each person, you create a job overseas, you sent jobs overseas. Part of that is because of the tax code in the United States. If they wanted to stop that, they could have a moratorium on taxes for a year. They could have a free year, or they could lower the tax rate to a more reasonable level. Why do companies invest overseas? They invest overseas in countries that have a lower tax rate. And supposedly, there are $2 trillion of American corporations' money outside the United States.
That's believable.
Now imagine if the government said, well, the government's not making any money on that.
Right.
It's not creating any jobs. It's not being reinvested. It's just sitting there. So imagine if the government, in its infinite wisdom, said, we're going to allow 2 years for all corporations to bring their money in overseas. You're not going to pay not a single penny in taxes. However, you've got to take 25% of that money and you have to reinvest it in your company so that you create new jobs. $500 billion of private money.
Why wouldn't that be a good idea?
Well, everyone wins, right?
Yeah.
Because there's new jobs created. You're not getting the tax revenue anyways. Why? Because it just makes sense.
Run for president.
I could do it. I would like to be emperor for just 4 years. I promise I would only run a 4-year term.
Yeah, right.
And then I'd
4
be done.
years from now, he'd say, gee, you know, this isn't a bad job. I get free food.
Remember, who was a congressman, remember? Was it Meehan up in Lowell?
Yes, Marty Meehan. Yeah.
Marty Meehan. I promised to run only 2 terms. And then when 2 terms, he said, well, they want me to run more, my constituents, so I'm going to run more.
This isn't a bad job.
What? That's just awful. And he's now the president of
Lowell.
Yeah.
Which
I have been back since I graduated.
Now, before we go on to the next thing, I want you to, why is this going to endanger seniors?
Well, I'll read some of it here.
By the way, I can't hear and Ron can't see.
Yeah,
so when you see him going like this.
The introduction's only a paragraph. It said, most people know that the U.S. government is rapidly approaching the edge of a fiscal cliff that will raise taxes for millions of Americans at every income level and age, not just the wealthy. What is less known is that seniors, many of whom depend on investment income to fund their retirement, will be hurt the most. If Congress fails to act, tax rates for investment income will soar beginning January 1st. The top tax rate on capital gains will jump to 23.8% from 15%, and the top rate for dividends will nearly triple to 43% from 15%. The House of Representatives is considering legislation to extend the current 15% tax rate on investment income for 1 year only. Once again, we'll be faced with the same thing next year.
Yeah, because it's like kicking the can down the street.
But the Senate plan, scheduled for a vote this Wednesday, would raise the top tax rate on capital gains and dividend income to 23.8% for individuals making more than $200,000 per year, or $250,000. Now
$250,000 is for a married couple.
$250,000. Now is not the time to raise taxes on investment income, even if limited to upper income taxpayers. Raising taxes on dividends and capital gains will have a devastating domino-like effect that will hurt the economic security of millions of Americans at every income level. Now, I could go on here with more stuff, but the gist of it is this. If the people who do the investing don't have the money to invest, you're not going to be creating jobs.
And the bottom line is, if Congress cannot sit down in a room without throwing insults at each other and being real jerks, then we need to throw them all out. Get them all out and put new people in whose only reason for being there is to make our lives better. And right now, the only reason they're there that I can see is to make their lives better.
And they have wonderful lives.
And if I'm wrong, why do they spend so much money to get there? What's the big deal if they're only going to serve us?
How can you spend $10, $20 million to get a job that pays a couple of $100,000?
Well, that's an interesting economic question.
And how come these congressmen go in as ordinary people, a lot of them, and come out extremely wealthy? You know, except for recent events, they were allowed to do something that was totally illegal for everybody else and people went to jail for, insider trading. Mm-hmm. If they had information on a stock, for example, if you were on a defense committee and you knew you were going to buy $2 billion in missiles and Raytheon was going to get the contract, they would go out and buy Raytheon stock. If you had that information and you traded it on it, you go to jail.
Exactly. All right, now calm your blood pressure down.
God, how did we get to this point in this country?
I don't know. The real question is, how do we get out of it? Well, you know what? We're going to find out by the end of the year, because either we're going over the cliff together, you'll hold my hand, it'll be okay, or they're going to have to come up with something. But the people in control are us and you. You have to go to the polls. No more of this 50%, 60%
How embarrassing.
Everybody needs to get to the polls this time. Now, if it turns out that you vote this way or this way, I don't care. But make sure that your voice is counted this time.
I think what it boils down for every election, you look at the people who are in power and you say, nobody's going to do exactly what I want 100% of the time. Nobody. I don't do what I want 100% of the time. How many times you do something and say, oh, man, I should have done this, right? So you're wrong sometime, too. But you look at where you are, you look at where the country is, and you say, is this where we want to be? Do I believe in this philosophy? Do I believe in it? And if you do, then you vote one way. If you don't, then you say, well, we have to change it. Now, the people changing it could be just as bad as the people in, but they may be bad in a different way. I don't know. But if you're not happy with the way things are, you vote to change. And that's with anything.
The new people will come in who saw the other people thrown out might just say, gee, maybe we got to do the right thing this time, or they're going to throw us out.
They think we're sheeps. They think they can come up with a slogan or something, and we're going to latch onto it. And you know what? They're right for a large part.
Yeah.
Because you get the chant, you get the slogan. Forget that. Think of what they do. Think of what they bring to the table. I mean, I want to, I want to have a government that takes care of me, that's there to help when I need it. But I do not want a government to tell me what to do with everything.
Do we have a call?
We have a call? Hello?
Hey, fellas, how are you tonight?
Fine. How are you?
Good.
What?
Hey, listen. Obama aside, I really don't feel like he's going to get in. He's not going to get the independent vote, so just put him aside for now. But do you, in your heart of hearts, really feel that Romney, and I know you'd say anybody but Obama, that's not what I'm looking for. Do you really feel that he can lead us out of this crap?
I don't.
I really think. I think McCain would have been a way better person than Romney. I don't think he did a good job in this state. I think he's a hypocrite, and he's a prototypical politician. Everything what you're talking about right now.
Well, the thing is, we know Romney better than the rest of the country because we had him.
Well, did you like we had?
I wouldn't pick either one of them, but I look at it this way. The current administration has had 3 years. And by his own words, that if he could not improve it, he should not be reelected. He's changed that, just like Marty Meehan. I would not pick Romney. I would not pick Obama to run it. I don't know any one person I'd pick and say, that's the person that I want. But I'll say one thing. I want some change, because what we're going is philosophically. I mean, if you're a small businessman, and I am, and I know Harvey is, and I don't know what you do, but when I hear that, my success in business isn't because that I work 6.5 days a week, it's because the government allowed me. The government is supposed to work for me. I don't work for the government. We've gotten away from that. This is America. The reason we have become a great country is because the individual has been more important than the government. Now it's the government more important. It's gone too far. They don't even teach civics anymore in school. People don't even understand how our government functions.
That's true.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Well, I don't necessarily agree with who you'd want, but that's okay. We can disagree. We can disagree, and we can work on it. But
you're misunderstanding me. I'm not an Obama guy.
No, I know.
I'm not. I'm just saying, if I had my brothers, I didn't like any of the Republican candidates. I actually would have thought McCain would blow all these guys out of the water.
He ran such a horrible campaign last time.
He did.
Yeah,
he did.
He did.
He made a lot of mistakes.
Well,
but I think as a president, he would have been better. That's all.
We have an opportunity, in a couple of months, to voice our opinion. And I think you seem to be smart enough to, you're not going to be led down a path by a couple of slogans or whatever. And if you believe something strongly, then try to get other people involved with it too. Pretty much
everybody I talk to does already believe that.
Well,
there's a lot of people hurting out there. There's a lot of people hurt.
There is, and I think people were hoping to have something better, and they voted on the idea, the slickness of the campaign, hope and change is going to be good. And I remember asking, what? Give me something solid. And there was nothing there. And, there are a lot of candidates that have nothing there. At least Romney has some business experience. You don't get to run Bain Capital, if you're a dope, if you don't understand how some things work. And this whole idea about sending jobs overseas, the person who sent more jobs overseas is the current administration, more than Romney did. Romney did his job. His job was to create value for his investors. And this country is now turned to the point that if you make money, if you've been successful, you're the enemy. No, it's gone completely crazy. So when Harvey said, how do we turn it around? I don't know if we can. I honestly don't know.
If we can, it's not.
Well, honestly, that's kind of the answer that I have. I just don't see Romney being able to turn it around.
Yeah, it's going to be, well, listen, I appreciate the call, and...
Ron, can I ask one last question?
Oh, sure.
Are you allowed to give your business address over the phone? I'd be interested in doing some insurance with you. I don't know if you're allowed to do that.
I couldn't hear the question.
He wants to know if we can give my business address over the phone.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with that.
Yeah, there are some people who have complained over the course of years, because they think we do this for that, and that's not why we do it.
Well,
yeah, but
can I Google you?
You can do it in answer to a question that somebody asked. We can't just sit here and say, hey, come on down to the office.
Yeah, buy stuff from us. We can't. No,
yeah, that's a call for action. This is not.
If you have a question, you need it. My office is in Stoneham. It's ARC Insurance, and my phone number is 781-279-7750. And when you call, you don't need to give your name. You can just tell them that you watch the program. And tell the receptionist or anyone who answers you want to talk to me, and I'll be more than happy to help you with any question at all. We've always made that offer. Yeah. And over the course of years, I'm happy to say, to have helped a number of people, especially a couple of elderly women with claims that were being jerked around by one of the companies. So, yeah, I'd love to talk to you, sir.
I appreciate it. Thanks for calling.
Thanks for the
so
call.
That was a good call.
Well, no, see, but that's great. He was... for McCain, thought McCain would do a good job. I don't necessarily think so, but that doesn't mean we have to hate each other.
I don't think so either, but you know what? Well, the only reason I don't think he would do a good job is he picked Sarah as his running mate. Good God. The fact that she could see Russia from her porch, that got me. Okay.
We start here and we end up over here, but it's good. I mean, I wish we had more callers. Wish we could help more people out with questions.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you do have a claim question or whatever, if you want to get in touch with me, you can always call the office. They'll give you a number, and you can call either Harvey or me, and you don't need to give your name. No. You're under no obligation. We do this because it's fun for us to do. Hopefully, you have a little fun watching it, and we try to come up with something to help you doing it. We've done this for years. We did a radio show in Boston. We did a radio show up in the Merrimack Valley. It's been fun for us to do. So if you need help, if you need a question or whatever, please, if you're concerned about someone trying to sell you something that is the wrong thing or whatever, I think one of the things that Harvey and I have both done in our business, we've tried to correct some of the wrongs that people do. Yeah. And we'd love to help you out if you have a question.
Okay, speaking of correcting wrongs, I'm going to get this in spite of you. Now, some of you were very excited to hear my soft serve ice cream story last time.
Yes.
Now,
especially Carol if she's watching. I went into work the next day.
She sent me a bag that said free soft serve ice cream on it from some place that was opening up on Route 1. I still have the bag, by the way, Carol. So anyway, after the show last time, I was so mad, I picked up the phone and I called. Oh, after the show, I went back. After supposedly the situation has been corrected, I get into another argument. Huh. Not only did I get into another argument, but that poor woman, Rosa, wasn't there anymore.
Yeah, you probably got her fired.
Yeah.
Is what
well,
it is.
The guy said she was fired.
It's awful. It's awful.
So I came home, and I was so mad, I picked up the phone, and I called McDonald's corporate headquarters.
You called Mr. McDonald himself?
I called Mr. McDonald. Yes. He had that little squeeze, that noisemaker. Anyway, I was making a joke there, Ronald McDonald the clown. Anyways, I got this customer service person. I told her the story. I said, tell me something.
How many times did you have to wake her up during the conversation?
No, she was laughing just like you are. I said, is it an ice cream or a sundae? She said, it's an ice cream. I said, well, what am I supposed to do? She said, well, we have franchisee associations, groups in various geographic locations. I'm going to send an email to the person that has your store.
And they're going to put your picture and alert them that when you see this guy, just shut off the lights and close the door.
So I said, okay, thank you very much. I get off the phone and I said to my wife, you know what chance I've got of hearing from this guy? Well, I swear to God, the next morning I was driving to a client's house. My cell phone rings, and the guy says, "Hi, I'm Robert from McDonald's. I just read an email that they sent me." Well, we had the funniest conversation. And he said, first of all, he said, "Of course it's an ice cream." And then we talked about, how difficult it is to run a business where you're paying just about minimum wage. There's constant turnover. We went through a whole bunch of issues. Actually, I invited him to be on the show.
Oh, that would have been fun.
I think it would be fun because we could talk about what's going on in the economy and how it's affecting not only fast food, but the pricing, the hiring.
Wages and hiring.
Yeah.
Will he bring food?
He said he would bring soft serve ice cream.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, so I'll actually call him for the next.
That'd be
the
great.
next one. So anyway, he said he gave me his cell phone number. He said, "I don't care if it's morning, noon, or night. If you go there and you have a problem, you call me." Well, I've been there about 7 times. I call him every time. He never answers the phone. Do you think?
Harvey, click.
So what I found out from him is that Rosa actually didn't get fired. She
committed suicide.
She transferred to another location.
Yeah, from the North Shore to get away from
in China.
Yeah.
So every time I go there, my wife won't go with me. My friend Gary, Gary won't go with me. So I went there today, and there was a very nice guy by the name of Scott. I'm telling you this because Scott did the right thing. I told him what I wanted.
He threw you out. No.
I said, "Scott, we're going to put the ice cream in the cup. I'm going to trade you the cup for the ice cream cone. Put a cap on it. I'm going." He says, "No problem. So you want a sundae, right?"
He
No.
said, "You must be Harvey."
And I said, so I explained it. He said, "Oh, yeah, that's an ice cream." I said, "Scott, you're a great guy." He gave me 5 ice creams in a cup, put caps on it, put it into a tray. I walked out paying for the ice cream. I immediately left a message on Robert's phone so that he could at least compliment his employee. He'd know that he had somebody with a brain working for him. And
Scott will be fired. Scott will be fired by the end of the day.
So I'm going to call Robert and get him on here. That'd be fun.
Well, it'd be interesting because we hear about the economy goes down and people have to take these jobs. Well,
yeah.
I'd rather take a job doing that than do nothing.
Yeah, I agree. So listen, we've come to the end. We're ending on a high note. We've come to the end of another scintillating conversation.
Yes, we ended it perfectly.
My name is Harvey Alberg.
I'm Ron DeLucia.
We're the Money Managers, and we'll see you again next month.
Thanks for watching.